Obviously, didn't work because we lost. But at the end of the day, we gotta make some more shots. I think my turnovers and my missed free throws cost us a game. So I gotta do way better in those two categories. But at the end of the day, we gotta make shots to win the game.
The Mavericks couldn't do the little things in game 2, and Kyrie Irving struggles in the second half, and the Mavericks are down 2-0 in the NBA Finals to the Boston Celtics. What went wrong in game 2 and what needs to change going forward? This is Inside the Mavs. Welcome to Inside the Mavs, presented by Aura. I'm your host, Kevin Gray, Mavs Pre and Post Game host on the Dallas Mavericks Radio Network. Appreciate you joining me here for the latest episode of Inside the Mavs. Make sure you download and subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts for free. Give it a 5-star rating and write a review for it while you're there. And if you're watching this on my YouTube channel at Kevin Gray Sports, make sure you like and comment on the video as well. And you can follow me on Twitter at Kevin Gray Sports. The Dallas Mavericks dropped game 2 of the NBA Finals 105-98 as the Mavericks are now down 2-0 as the series moves to Dallas for games 3 and 4 beginning on Wednesday. Luka Doncic making history for the Dallas Mavericks, becoming the first Maverick to have a triple-double in the NBA Finals with his 32 points, 11 rebounds, and 11 assists, but unfortunately had 8 turnovers as well, as the Mavericks simply couldn't do the little things down the stretch, shooting themselves in the foot way too often in game 2 to lose in game 2 of the NBA Finals. The Celtics have now won 9 straight games in the postseason, now have a chance when they go on the road beginning on Wednesday to extend their postseason road winning streak to 9 as well, as they have not lost on the road so far this postseason. But for the Mavericks, an opportunity to win a very gettable game against a Celtics team that struggled quite a bit, especially from the three-point line. Well, yes, they got timely second chance opportunities and made some big buckets down the stretch. And of course, Derek White's block on PJ Washington with 30 seconds to go to seal it. No matter how you may feel about whether or not it should have been a foul call on Jaylen Brown for pushing PJ Washington in the back, the foul wasn't called, and the Celtics were able to hang on down the stretch after the Mavericks had used a 9-0 run to close it within 5 with a minute or so left in the game. But for the Mavericks, they simply couldn't take advantage of the opportunities that were provided to them, especially for a Celtics team that struggled for the three-point line, that went 10 of 39 from deep at just 25.6%. In game 2, the Mavericks were even worse at 6 of 26 from downtown, shooting at 23% from the three-point line. But even still, the Mavericks missed 8 free throws in game 2, going 16 of 24 from the free throw line, while the Celtics went 19 of 20 from the line, including a perfect 10 of 10 in the first quarter. And when you watched this game, you saw that the Mavericks were much more aggressive to begin this game, and they started the near first 4 minutes of the game outscoring the Celtics 13-6. Luka and Kyrie combined for 10 of the Mavericks' first 13 points, and you saw the Mavericks make a concerted effort to get into the paint, whether it was attacking Derek White off the dribble, Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving attacking White at the very beginning of the game, getting into the mid-range and into the paint to be able to get some easy buckets for them to be able to get off to a good offensive rhythm and start. And we know that the Celtics, especially from game 1, were allowing Luka and Kyrie to be able to get into the paint and take those twos if they wanted to. Those two took advantage of that in game 2 to try and put some extra pressure on the Celtics defensively. But the Celtics, they were able to respond after the Mavericks started 6 of 10 from the field with a 6-0 run of their own over the next 3 minutes, as the Mavericks led at 13-12 with 5 minutes left in the first quarter. The Mavs then responded again with a 7-2 run of their own to lead by 6 at 20-14 with 3 minutes left in the period. The Celtics then went on a run of their own, going 8-2, and that was able to tie the game at 22 after a Kristaps Porzingis jumper with a minute left. But the Mavericks would outscore the Celtics 6-3 in the final minute after a couple of Kyrie Irving baskets and 2 Josh Green free throws after he's fouled at the end of the first quarter, as they were able to lead 28-25 at the end of one. And what you saw from the Mavericks was a much more aggressive approach, not only on the offensive end, but also on the defensive end, where they held the Celtics to just 1 of 9 from the three-point line and 37% overall from the field. Yeah, Kristaps Porzingis had 8 points, but Luka Doncic got off to a hot start with his 13, and Kyrie had 8, as they had 21 of what was the 28 first quarter points for the Mavericks. And that, to me, I thought was setting a tone for the Mavericks offensively, that it was going to be different, taking what the Celtics were giving them in order to be much more effective on the offensive end. Luka Doncic drilling a three-pointer to get to 11 points. That made it 18-14 with 3:40 left in that first quarter. Hit a turnaround fadeaway jumper. PJ Washington knocking down a three-pointer on the left wing as well. That gave him an early 5-point lead at 7-2 with just under 11 minutes left in that first quarter. So you saw the variety of offense for the Mavericks be able to play itself out in the first quarter. And I thought that was a good sign for a team that shot 40% from 3 and 52% from the field in that first quarter, that maybe this was going to be different given how much more aggressive offensively the Mavericks came out to begin the game. And you saw that, and it was looking like a team where Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic scored or assisted on the first 13 points of the game. And you felt like, okay, this was an opportunity, especially with Kyrie Irving getting a tough bucket in the paint that put the Mavs back out in front 24-22 after the Celtics had tied it. That came with 45 seconds left in the first quarter, that the Mavericks were going to continue to sustain that offensive pressure on a Celtics defense that felt extremely comfortable in game number 1. And as you move on to the second quarter, the Mavericks, as you saw, were able to continue, at least for a little while, be able to remain in the game. Before we get there, though, when you look at that first quarter, the Mavericks held the Celtics without a three-point field goal attempt in the first 4 minutes of the game. One of the keys that we knew going into game 2 and for the rest of the series, really at the outset of the series, was the Mavericks were going to have to run the Celtics off the three-point line. They made 16 threes in game 1, a team in Boston who made 16 and a half threes per game during the regular season, which was number 1 in the NBA. But the Mavericks did a good job of making things difficult from them at the three-point line and not allowing them to get up the kinds of shot attempts from 3 that they were accustomed to doing. But at the same time, Kyrie Irving picked up a couple fouls in that first quarter. The Mavericks struggled from the free throw line, which will be a theme of game 2. They went 4 of 9 from the charity stripe in the first quarter, while the Celtics were 10 of 10. That's what allowed Boston to stay in it in that first quarter. And you saw, unfortunately, at times, Maxi Kleber, who missed 2 open three-pointers, not shooting the ball well right now and not shooting it with a lot of confidence for the Mavericks. So you saw the different approach. The Celtics getting to the free throw line, getting into the paint and attacking. Meanwhile, the Mavericks were doing a good bit of that themselves in executing, whether it be in the mid-range in terms of the floater or the jumpers that Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving were hitting. The Mavericks made a concerted effort to be much more assertive on the offensive end. That gets us to the second quarter, because the Mavs were up by 3 to begin the second quarter. Again, feeling like you could sustain the momentum to be able to move forward in game 2. But the Celtics would outscore the Mavericks 11-7 in the first 4 minutes to take a 36-35 lead after a Derek White three-pointer. And again, as you watch this game, the Celtics didn't make a lot of threes, but they made a lot of timely threes, including, of course, that Peyton Pritchard three-pointer that he hit at the end of the third quarter that increased what was a 6-point lead to a 9-point lead going into the fourth quarter. More on that later on in the show. But the Celtics would maintain that 1-point lead at 36-35 with 7 minutes left in the first half after a Celtics timeout, as they used what was a 9-2 run in the middle of that 13-7 start to lead 38-35 midway through the first half, midway through the second quarter and in the first half, obviously, after a Jaylen Brown layup. But the teams would seesaw back and forth, and the Mavericks would find themselves getting some of the vertical game going as well, with Derrick Jones Jr. getting a dunk off an assist from Luka Doncic to tie the game at 44. Derrick Jones Jr. started to get things going in that second quarter for the Mavericks, where he had 7 points, including an and one. He also got a nice layup off of a no-look pass from Doncic to be able to cut the lead of the Celtics to 40-39. That came with just over 5 minutes left in the first half. Jones's activity was really evident in that second quarter. He got an offensive rebound and found Josh Green cut into the basket for a layup as the Celtics led 38-37. But it had to be some of the others in this game to help Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving supplement the scoring. The Mavericks had all 5 of their starters in double figures, but their bench is what let them down in this game. The bench only had 9 points, while Kristaps Porzingis himself outscored the Mavericks bench 12-9. But what was a seesaw back and forth 5 minutes of that second quarter, the Celtics would lead by 2, 51-49, with a minute left in the first half, eventually holding a 3-point lead going into halftime at 54-51. Luka Doncic, again, 10 points in that quarter. Derrick Jones Jr.'s activity, as we described, was really good in that second period. But what was the theme for the night for Boston, especially, was Jrue Holiday. Jrue Holiday was fantastic with the 26 points that he had, going 11 of 14 from the field. And not only that, he had 11 rebounds as well. And really, not only just the defense, but his scoring was excellent, whether it be on second chance opportunities, which the Celtics got some timely second chance rebounds to be able to make some things happen for extra possessions, or just his defense and what he was doing, knocking down shots from the outside. Because you look at what he did in that second quarter, they're really affecting the Celtics offensively, where they scored 29 points. You saw what he was able to do. Jrue Holiday going 5 of 6 from the field, hit a three-pointer, had 11 points, also had 4 rebounds in that quarter as well. So he really put his stamp on his game, especially in that second period, where the Celtics shot just 33% from 3, but they shot 57% overall from the field. Mavericks shot 25% from 3 and 45.5% overall from the field, as the Celtics led by 3 at halftime. But the Mavericks shot themselves in the foot, especially in the first half, and really should have been leading at halftime based off of the way that they were attacking and getting into the paint. But in the free throw department, you look at what they did in the first half. The Mavericks were 5 of 11 from the free throw line, missing 6 first-half free throws, while the Celtics were 13 of 13 from the free throw line in the first half. And not only that, you were turning the ball over too much. You look at what the Mavericks did in the first half from a turnover standpoint, had 8 first-half turnovers that led to 11 points off turnovers for the Celtics. So not only were you missing free throws, but you were not protecting the basketball as well. And when the margin of error is as thin as it is against a terrific team in Boston, who's won 64 games during the regular season and now have won 9 straight games in the postseason, you've got to be able to take care of the basketball, value possession, but also be able to get free points when you have the opportunities to get them from the free throw line. And the Mavericks simply didn't do that. And now they find themselves down at 2-0. Jason Kidd talking about the loss after the game as well, and what the Mavericks did and weren't able to do in terms of knocking down shots in game number 2. Take a listen.
Yeah, they haven't lost a game since May something, right? So, yeah, they're hot, not just on the road, but at home. So we got to protect home, and that's it. We got to find a way, continue, again, to build on our defense. Our defense put us in a position to win tonight. Unfortunately, our offense didn't help us, and so again, Kai and Luka are going to get their looks. It's we got to get someone else involved of being able to knock down some shots. But defensively, we can build on this and we can be better. But we got to take care of the ball, and if we can take care of the ball, hopefully that gives us more opportunities at scoring.
So the Mavericks and Jason Kidd hoping to knock down some more of those open shots, but more importantly, valuing and protecting the basketball to be able to not give the Celtics extra possessions, which you know they could take advantage of, which played itself out, especially in game 2 after the Mavericks had clawed their way back into the game. But unfortunately, turnovers, especially with Luka Doncic's 8 turnovers in this game, really cost them. More on this as we examine what happened in the second half of this game, particularly Kyrie Irving struggles. I see the Mavericks now down at 2-0 to the Boston Celtics. But before we get there, let's hear from today's sponsor of our video and our podcast, Let's hear from Aura. Today's video is brought to you by Aura. Do a Google search on your name and email address to see how much information comes up about you. I was devastated by the amount of information that I could be seeing searching my name and profile, and I knew then I needed to be protected for not just myself, but also for my family. Data brokers sell your information to scammers, spammers, and anyone else who may want to target you. Your full name, email, home address, health records, your relatives, it's all out there. That's why I've been using Aura, the sponsor of today's video. Aura shows me which data brokers are selling my information and automatically submits opt-out requests for me. Cleaning up my information not only helps reduce the amount of spam I get, but it protects me from hackers who could use this information to help them access my social media accounts, bank accounts, and other sensitive information. Aura also does so much more to protect me and my family from online threats that I can't see. It's really easy to set up, so I don't have to download several different apps to get things like antivirus, VPN, password management, parental controls, identity theft insurance, and more. I get everything at one affordable price. You may already have one of these tools already, but not having Aura is like locking the front door and leaving the back door wide open. Aura is always on, doing the hard work to protect me and my family so I can focus on other tasks with peace of mind. I value my privacy and I value yours. You can go to aura.com/Kevin Gray to start your 2-week free trial. Please see the link in the description. Back here on Inside the Mavs, thank you for hanging out with us through our spot, and thank you to today's sponsor of our video and our podcast in Aura as the Mavericks drop Game 2 of the NBA Finals 105-98 to the Boston Celtics. Celtics now having won 9 straight games in this postseason. Meanwhile, the Mavericks dropped to 7-4 away from the American Airlines Center as they get ready for Games 3 and 4 beginning on Wednesday. But for the Mavericks, we've talked about how they weren't able to do the little things in this game to be able to beat Boston. And when the margin of error is as thin as it is, you cannot shoot yourself in the foot and think you're going to beat a team as good and as talented as Boston, no matter how much they were trying to give you Game 2. You have to take it from them when the opportunity presents itself. And you look at what happened in the first half, Luka and Kyrie combining for 33 of the 51 points that the Mavericks had in the first half. Luka Doncic going 9 of 13 from the field. Kyrie Irving going 5 of 10, a combined 14 of 23 from the field. And you were thinking that their offensive aggressiveness would continue to go into the second half. But unfortunately, that was not the case for the Mavericks. And when you look at what happened in that second half, Boston was able to really get after Kyrie Irving, especially. And when you start looking at the second half, Mavericks down by 3 to begin the second half. Mavericks started on a 6-3 run to tie the game at 57. Daniel Gafford got involved. You saw Derek Lively and Daniel Gafford start to get much more active in that third quarter, where it's been a tough series so far in the first couple of games for the centers of the Mavericks, particularly from Derek Lively. But Daniel Gafford really started to play well and make his imprint on this game, especially in the third quarter. But the Celtics would respond again with a quick 5-0 run to take what was a 5-point lead at 62-57, again after another timely Derek White three-pointer. His defense and timely shot making, and you know how his defense came to play in the later stages of game number 2. But the Mavericks again will pull within 2 at 63-61 with 7.5 minutes left in that third period after a Derek Lively dunk. We talked about what they were able to do in getting some activity going. You saw the nice dunk off of a nice move that Daniel Gafford had to pull the Mavs within 1 at 54-53. Derek Lively getting the dunk off the pick and roll, getting some of that vertical game going for the Dallas Mavericks and finishing nice at the rim. But the Boston Celtics would find themselves responding what was a 10-0 run as they were able to lead by 12 at 75-63. They would increase their lead to 69-63 with 5 minutes left after a Jaylen Brown driving layup forced the Mavericks timeout. Again, that was part of an overall 10-0 run that had the Celtics up 75-63 with 3 minutes left in the quarter. And that is something we have seen through the first couple of games between the Mavericks and the Celtics. Big runs by the Celtics to increase leads through games 1 and 2 that have really put the Mavericks in bad positions to try and play nearly perfect basketball to be able to stay within these games. And when you're not able to do that because you have to play nearly flawless in order to even keep up with the Celtics team that may struggle from the field at times, that is the kind of pressure that Boston can put on you throughout the course of the game. But the Mavericks were able to pull it within 6 at 80-74 after 2 Kyrie Irving free throws with 3 seconds left in the period. But again, doing the little things have got to come into play when you're playing a team as talented as the Celtics. And Peyton Pritchard made the Mavericks pay by hitting a buzzer beater glass shot from 34 feet that had the Celtics back up by 9 at 83-74. So again, when you know that Celtics like to push the ball to be able to get an opportunity to be able to get a three-point shot, I'm not saying that you've got to full-on guard Pritchard in that moment, but you've got to try and at least make it difficult and contest, because you know the Celtics love to jack up those three-pointers. And that one was a back-breaking one at the end of the third after you had clawed your way back into it to make it a 6-point game. But nonetheless, the Celtics get that bank shot from Pritchard to make it 83-74 at the end of 3. Luka Doncic and P.J. Washington each had 6 points in that period, but Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown combined for 15 points as Boston shot just 20% from 3, but 44% overall. And one thing that you may notice so far in this series, while Jason Tatum's offensive numbers from a scoring standpoint haven't been necessarily gaudy, he's doing the things for the Celtics in other areas, especially as a passer. You look at what he did in the first half in terms of what he did as a playmaker. He had 8 assists in the first half, making plays for his teammates and getting them in open positions to be able to make some shots. And when you look at the game overall, between what Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown were able to do, you look at what they did from an assist standpoint, for example. They combined for 19 assists in game 2. They combined for 13 rebounds in game number 2 as well, along as combining for 39 points. So not only did they have the combined 19 assists, the combined 13 rebounds that they had, but they also put together 4 steals between the two of them. These are the things that championship teams do when shots aren't falling, like for Tatum in game 2 where he went 6 of 22. He still found a way to be a +6 because he was doing everything else to facilitate his teammates in terms of offense and making plays for them to be able to get some easy baskets. That is why the Celtics are in the position that they are, among other things that they were able to do better in game 2 that the Mavericks couldn't. But the Mavericks were able to end what was that 10-0 run that we talked about, with Luka Doncic hitting a three-pointer to make it 75-76. It was also good to see Dante Exum knock down an open 3 that pulled the Mavericks again back within 10 at 80-70 with just under 2 minutes left in that third quarter. Other folks have got to start coming with the Mavericks in terms of their scoring, because yes, they had their 5 starters in double figures, but their bench, especially in these 2 games, have not been very good, and it was terrible in game 2 for the Mavericks. If they can get some better bench production, this team can find themselves sticking with the Celtics, and they did so. But unfortunately, what came into play as we look at the fourth quarter, some bad turnovers and some untimely plays, especially not being able to get the scoring output between Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving. And one of the things that the Celtics you saw, especially in the second half, do, Luka Doncic was able to really get things going from a scoring standpoint and from a facilitation standpoint in terms of getting his guys involved. But in the second half, the Celtics started to pick on Luka Doncic, hunting him on the defensive end, making him work, because coming into the game, we had learned that Luka Doncic was dealing with a chest contusion, a thoracic injury, if you will, on top of the fact that he's dealing with ankle soreness, that he's dealing with a knee sprain. We already know that he's been dealing with a quad injury throughout the course of the season as well. The Celtics made it a point to make him work on the defensive end and hunting him to get into favorable matchups where he would have to try to sit down and guard and be able to do so possession after possession, and he simply got worn down as the game went on, and the Celtics were able to take advantage of that. But as you start looking at the fourth quarter, Mavericks down by 9 to begin the fourth period. They cut the deficit. They did, as they were able to get it to within 7 at 90-83 in the first 4 minutes of that third period after a Kyrie Irving layup in that first 4 minutes of the fourth quarter. Daniel Gafford was also, again, a big factor. We saw what he did early on in that third quarter, was able to have another imprint on this game in the fourth quarter where he had 5 of the Mavericks' first 9 points of the fourth period. But the Celtics would then go on a 5-0 run to take a 12-point lead at 95-83 with 7 minutes left. And you're thinking at that point, the Mavericks have got to find a way to start getting stops because you can't continue to go basket for basket, blow for blow with the Celtics and think you're going to continue to keep up because even with the struggles that they've had on the offensive end, at some point they're going to knock down enough timely threes to be able to put you in a bind as you get closer and closer down the stretch. But the Mavericks would then pull to within 8 at 4:40 left in the fourth quarter at 97-89, forcing a timeout. You saw what they were able to do to get to that. Kyrie Irving throws a lob to Daniel Gafford in transition for the dunk. Again, getting some of that vertical game going that had virtually been non-existent in game number 1. Kyrie Irving was starting to get things going for the Mavericks. He got that lefty layup in transition to cut down the lead to 7 at 90-83. Again, 4 minutes in. The PJ Washington worked hard on the offensive end, got his own offensive rebound off of his miss to get the layup to get the Mavericks again within 10 at 95-85. That came with just over 6 minutes left in the game itself. You look at PJ Washington from a scoring standpoint, had a pretty good game with 17 points, with 6 of 13 from the field, but went just 1 of 5 from the three-point line. And when you look at what the Mavericks did from a shooting standpoint, Luka Doncic went 4 of 9 from the three-point line. Everyone else outside of Doncic in the game went 2 of 17 from 3. That's simply not going to cut it when you're taking on a Celtics team that's going to get enough shots made down the stretch to win games. But that was a critical juncture of the game because at that point, the Mavericks were down by 8, and you felt like they were starting to get themselves climbing back into the game. But Boston would respond with what would be a critical 6-0 run to increase their lead. Part of that what it came on was back-to-back three-pointers by Jrue Holiday and Derek White. And we talked about the turnovers. Luka Doncic having a turnover, or PJ Washington having a bad pass in the backcourt where Luka Doncic him trying to exchange the passes to get the ball over the half-court line, and it led to a turnover. Jrue Holiday knocks down a three-pointer, and then on the very next possession, Derek White hits another 3. So you go from being down just 8 to being down by 14 in a matter of seconds with 3.5 minutes left in the game. Again, costly turnovers. And you look back even at that third quarter, Luka Doncic is having a couple of bad passes where he was trying to throw a behind-the-back pass that was a turnover, trying to throw an over-the-shoulder pass that was intercepted going cross-court. Bad decision-making at times, and I know that there was a lot of pressure being put on Doncic to make the plays because other guys simply weren't making shots, so at times he was forcing the issue. But for the Mavericks, you again cannot turn the ball over and expect to win this game and win games against the Celtics in this series. But that was a critical juncture of the game where the Celtics were able to push their lead back up to 14 at 103-89 with 3.5 minutes left. But the Mavericks made one final stand in this game. They went on a 9-0 run to cut what was a 14-point deficit to 5 at 103-98. After Luka Doncic was able to get an and-one on Al Horford, he would hit the free throw and be able to have the Mavericks within 5 with 1:15 left in the fourth quarter. And now things are starting to get interesting because you, again, have clawed your way back into the game if you're the Mavericks and giving yourself an opportunity to maybe try to possibly steal game 2 on the road. But you give credit to the Boston Celtics. Again, we mentioned it a little bit earlier. No matter how you may feel about whether or not it was a foul, you can look at the replay and you can see the hand of Jaylen Brown in the back of PJ Washington. But Washington is going up for a dunk attempt in transition. Derek White gets the block on PJ, along with Jaylen Brown helping out on the defensive end. A foul wasn't called, and then they go back down on the other end. Jaylen Brown gets a layup to increase their lead back to 7 with 30 seconds left in the game. And that was it from there as they will go on to win 105-98. But again, You saw the Mavericks fight back and claw back, but simply not have enough. And part of this is several things in this game. You gave up too many second chance opportunities for the Celtics to be able to extend possession. You did not make your free throws in this game. You missed 8 critical free throws in a game that you lost by 7 points. You turned the ball over 15 times in this game with your superstar having 8 of them. And then in the second half, Kyrie Irving disappeared. You look at what Kyrie Irving did in the second half from a shooting standpoint, and he, along with his teammates, Kyrie Irving, went 2 of 8 from the field for just 6 points. In fact, when you look at that fourth quarter between Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving, the two of them combined for what would be 7 points in that fourth quarter. Daniel Gafford had 7 points alone for the Dallas Mavericks. That will not get you a win on the road against the Celtics. But Kyrie Irving, for a second straight game, disappointing. This time in the second half, as we mentioned, going 2 of 8 from the field, 0 of 3 from the three-point line, had 2 personal fouls, had 3 assists and a couple of rebounds, but was not able to provide the scoring punch that the Mavericks needed. And he, especially going into game number 3 on Wednesday, has got to find some measure of consistency, because right now, offensively, he has not come to play that the way that the Mavericks have needed him to in the first couple of games. In fact, here is Kyrie Irving discussing some of his struggles along with what happened with the Mavericks in game 2 that saw them lose to the Celtics.
Yeah, that's the confidence that I have in myself. A lot of shots were hitting the back rim that could piss you off as a competitor. But it's all part of the game of basketball, and you got to accept the ups and downs of this. That's the I would say the toughest challenge when you're in a series. You want to play extremely well, especially when you're playing in the finals. A little disappointed in myself not being able to convert a lot more of my opportunities that I have in the lane. Obviously I'm going against Jrue Holiday and Jaylen Brown a few times, but I feel like I have the upper edge on certain possessions where I just got to convert. They're pushing me to my left hand a little bit more, so just got to be aware of some of their adjustments like I was in game 1. Felt good in the first half, but in the second half, just shots weren't going down, and defensively I was out of position, got some ticky-tack fouls, and just kind of took away from our flow of the game as well. It wasn't just all on me, but I'm definitely taking the majority of it just because my teammates look to me to convert a lot of these shots and ease the burden, not only just Luka, but everyone else, and settle our team. We've definitely made our identity on the defensive end, but now offensively, I got to play better.
So Kyrie Irving discussing his struggles, especially in the second half for the Mavericks, and why they were not able to get a game to win. And you look at some of the things from the Mavericks. P.J. Washington had a good second half in 20 minutes, went 4 of 8. He had 12 points to actually lead the Mavericks in second half scoring based on what he was able to do. Daniel Gafford had 11 as well. But your superstars, especially Luka Doncic, got worn down as the game went on. The turnovers and the mistakes of not being able to convert from the free throw line really hurt this team. And you simply cannot give away points. You cannot give away the basketball and think that a team as good as Boston, even with the shooting struggles that they've had in game 2, think that you're going to win. And with Jaylen Brown playing the way that he's doing on the defensive end, hounding Kyrie Irving at times, you saw him force a 24-second shot clock violation with some really terrific defense in what was the left corner in the first half. Jaylen Brown's playing at an NBA Finals MVP level, and Jrue Holiday, who has been not only spectacular on the defensive end throughout the course of the regular season, but offensively was able to really put his stamp on this game with not only his outside shooting, but helping out on the offensive glass. His 26 points and 11 rebounds really was a back-breaking sight to see for the Dallas Mavericks, and that's what the Celtics do. They've got a number of guys that can put pressure on you when either Brown or Tatum aren't necessarily going. Porzingis can get you 20 like he did in game 1. Jrue Holiday can get you 26 like he did in game 2. The amount of depth that the Celtics present with the guys and the skill level that they have make it extremely difficult for you to last with them throughout the course of a 48-minute game. But the Mavericks did some good things in this game, but again, they were held under 100 points for the second straight game to start this series. they've got to find a way to get more shots made and also be able to execute better in terms of what they can control, which is protecting the basketball and making their free throws and not allowing second chance opportunities. Derek Lively, who's had a tough series so far, only played 5 minutes in the second half. So there are a lot of things that the Mavericks can improve upon, and we'll be discussing those things over the next couple of days, as the Mavericks and Celtics won't play game 3 until Wednesday. But a difficult loss to swallow, especially when you know that the Celtics were giving you plenty of opportunities to take and win this game, and the Mavericks simply didn't take advantage of those chances when they had the opportunities to do so. That is why they find themselves down 2-0 in the NBA Finals. They've got a lot of work to do to try to climb themselves back into the series. The Celtics did what they were supposed to do, which was protect home court in the first couple of games. Now the Mavericks need to do the same. They must do the same if they want to remain in this series, and that begins with the work on practice on Tuesday, and then, of course, game number 3 on Wednesday night. But the Mavericks fall to the Celtics in game number 2, 105-98, to fall 2-0 down in this best of 7 in the NBA Finals. The Mavericks have got to pick themselves up, but that starts by getting themselves an opportunity to see what they did wrong, clean up the work, and they get back to work on the practice court and then go from there. That'll do it for this episode of Inside the Mavs. Again, thank you for joining me on this episode here. Make sure you download and subscribe to the Inside the Mavs podcast. Wherever you get your podcasts for free, give it a 5-star rating, write a review for it while you're there, and make sure you follow me on Twitter at Kevin Gray Sports. Like and comment on the video if you're watching this on my YouTube channel. Make sure you follow Grant Afseth on his YouTube channel as well, under his name at Grant Afseth, and follow him for all of his work for Mavs Sports Illustrated. He'll be back with me on the next episodes of Inside the Mavs. We get you ready for game number 3 of the NBA Finals between your Dallas Mavericks and the Boston Celtics. But this has been Inside the Mavs, presented by Aura.